Hello and welcome back to Piece of the Week. This week we're going to be looking at the statue of Amenemhab Mahu, one of the very rare statues to have survived from an ancient musician, memorializing his life. Amenemhab Mahu, or Mahu for short. He was a temple singer, a palace singer, and harpist. He was a pop star of his day. It's very exciting. An individual who represents one of thousands of musicians that traversed the land of the Nile and beyond over the course of history, but only a handful of them actually survive in any documented form, either in papyrus or paintings on the walls or carvings, and rarely statues. And this is one of those statues. He was a singer, a harpist. By his own admission, he accompanied the king to foreign lands. That's a rare feat. A tour. A touring artist. I think that's absolutely wild. I mean, he must have been good to accompany Amenhotep III to the different lands. It would have been awesome. And the stele that this statue holds is his song, his most famous song, which was about the setting sun. And you can see that he's depicted on the stele itself, playing his harp, and the horizon of the sun, with the sun in the middle, he's playing to it. And I'll read that transcript for you now. And so Mahu sang the praises for the setting sun. Praise you millions and millions of times. I have come to you adoring your beauty. Your mother Nut, the sky, embraces you. You are joyful as you traverse the sky and earth. May the gods of the underworld worship you and sing your praise. When you hear my words, which worship you every day, so that you endow me with the burial in peace after enduring old age, and my bar being among my ancestors, following the king. So Mahu played this to gain favor from the sun god eternally. The statue is of a type not dissimilar to a block statue, which were designed to endure eternity, really, because
Really?
there's no loose limbs flailing around. They're quite compact. And here he is kneeling, holding a stele, giving further protection to the actual statue matrix. They're a very durable looking statue. And like the block statue, many of them survive. Now, it would have been set up in a temple, most probably Karnak, and later buried when the temple was well and truly clustered with statues of generations of individuals. And they were placed in the nooks and crannies of the temple, and when worshippers would come into the temple, they would read them if they could, and by speaking his name, he would live again. But eventually, maybe 100 years later or so, they'd have a clearance, and they often buried statues. The great Karnak cache, well, that was the number one find I would love to have been a part of. My goodness. I think it was 15,000 statues, different stone ones, and mostly bronze, that today make up the majority of the world's museums, the great museums. It was divvied up. And I think this one came from there and was given to the British Museum, or they bought it, acquired it, and that's where the original survives now today. I'm not sure if it's on show. Somebody has let me know this week, Madame Adrienne of the Lavender World. Can't remember seeing it, and she knows the British Museum collection quite well. So, her and Corinda, see if you can find Mahu. He's there, as he is here, in this World War II replica. It was a replica that was made in World War II as a kind of hedging of the bets, not keeping all of your eggs in the one basket type of situation. When London was being bombed, a lot of the museum collections around the European zone were making replicas of their most important statues, and this one is important. And they would put the originals often in drains deep underneath London, in the Tube, and in mines, chalk mines, just to keep them safe. But the replicas were there as a safeguard in case the original was lost, like what happened in the Liverpool Museum. So many pieces were blown to smithereens, and we've got nothing but a few photos of some of those pieces. And that's, again, the importance of a good replica. And this is one I'm prepared to give away. Not give away, but I'm parting with it. I'll be putting it on eBay, down under Ferrer eBay on auction, and whoever wants it can have it. I've got one myself that I will keep, but I don't need two. So this one is an opportunity for you to make your collection just a little bit more special. Yeah, it's a special one. As mentioned, there are many harpists and musicians displayed in tombs and on the walls of temples. And some of them were exceptionally well carved. The blind harpist of Memphis is one that I really enjoyed carving back in the early 90s. He was my grandmother's favourite. I used to put it on her balcony, and she'd often look at it while having a cup of tea, and the sun going across the surface, the carved surface, lighting up the different strings of the instrument. She loved it. And, well, I have that one here now, so you can have a look at that one. Ring, 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 ring. Oh. I'll have to put it up on screen. Oh, it's heavy. Oh, 1994. This is the original, and it is still good. It's got the two metal bars on this one, It was in a wooden stand, but because she had it on the balcony and she'd always water the plants around it, it rotted away. It just turned to woody sludge, and that's no good for anybody. Anywho, the blind harpist, that's a fascinating subject in Egyptian history in itself, because it shows that the Egyptians respected and loved their handicapped individuals. And that was a way to give them employment. And as is often the case, when you are impaired in one area, you become exceptional in another. Not all the time, but certainly with the blind, there is a theme, a current of their musical ability, their ability to hone in on sound, much more heightened senses there. I have 2 deaf cousins, and they're very visual. I just remembered I've got a piece up here that is a blind harpist in 3-dimensional form. Exceptionally rare statue. And he's going to be available too this week. So I'll pop him up. I'll just grab him now. He is here next to Amenhotep the Second. Great grandfather. Anyway, this little guy. Can you see him? Isn't he wonderful? He's sitting there with his harp. It's a little bit crude, but it's actually quite good proportions, really. And we know it's a blind harpist because of the way the eyes are depicted. They're more or less sockets. That was a way of showing the blind. It's a great piece. I'll show you in more detail. I'll have to take a photo and yeah, we'll have a look at it that way. Now, in different phases of Egyptian protocol, even if you weren't blind, you could play the harp, of course, and in certain ritualistic situations, you would have to wear a blindfold. And because you're in contact with the deity, like you're playing the music for the deity, you would have to wear a blindfold if you could see. So that's a really unusual thing, and there are depictions of these blindfolded individuals. And yeah, that's a really lesser known fact. We don't fully understand the ritual practices and why, but you can sort of see the sacredness involved in the musician's role within the temple compound. It has a heightened sense of purpose. Some of the actual harps have survived, and that is wonderful, but we do not have any of the music, of course, because musical notation didn't really exist in Egypt the way we know music now. There is very, very scant evidence for being able to decipher songs that were written. We've got the words, but we don't have the rhythm, the timing or the melody. You can sort of see in some depictions of multiple harpists playing together, the hands in different positions. So you can see that the artist is trying to show us, or is trying to record what they were doing, what they were playing, and you can superimpose those movements to try and recreate that on a replica harp today, and they have tried to do that. But we don't know how tight they had the wires. We don't know what they were actually made of. What were they made of? It was... Oh, there was leather and reed. Oh, check that. Yeah, I don't think they had catgut, because Bast was sacred. You don't be cutting up no cat in there. No, sorry! Unless you're mummifying it, of course. Maybe they did use guts. I have to check that one. I don't know what the strings were made of, because I actually don't think any survived with the strings intact. They would have just rotted away. One very famous harp that was well published, and I used to see it all the time in books, has proved to be a fake, and I'll show you that one and why. Here's a vintage picture of the harp in question. Quite difficult to find these days, as it's no longer published very widely. But as you can see, it looks quite authentic, quite aged, and the details are quite fine. And the proportions not too bad either, except the headdress. The double crown looks a little bit small on top of the nemes, a bit clumsy. But the smoking gun is the collar. The collar is shown in profile, which is completely absurd when you compare it with a real harp like this one. It encircles the figure of the harp symmetrically, and is a stylistically typical way of doing it, fanning out attractively across the breast. The modern forger was inspired by the images in this tomb of these tall, elegant figures playing the harp. They're quite damaged now, and the line drawings convey what was seen at the time of its discovery. There were a pair of figures facing each other with slightly different harps, and this one is the one that was totally utilised to recreate the modern forged harp. Egyptian paintings and relief carvings are renowned for being shown in profile. However, some of the details are shown in plan view to convey to the viewer, or the deity that was expected to be looking upon it, or the owner of the tomb, to see the fullness of the collar. So the forger got it wrong. He based his design on the painting, which was incongruous with the actual three-dimensional reality. So he's got it tapering down the side of the harp. You can see it there. It should have been wrapped around the front of the neck. It's ridiculous. Looks good, like a nice proportioned harp, but no, it's not a real one. It's been disproved, and sadly that one's relegated to the storehouses of the museum that used to have it. So yeah, but plenty of other ones survive, and there's various different types of harp: shovel-nosed, shovel-shaped, shovel-nosed shark, shovel-shaped, ladle-shaped, little smaller versions of each of those, handheld harps, really tall harps as well that you had to stand to play. Yeah, it's great. So many variations. I mean, then there's the lute players. Yeah, very few have been found with their instruments.
But a relatively recent person was found with their lute by their side, which is really special. I mean, that's how important it was to them to put there, and they must have been known for it too. So, yeah, affectionately buried with it. The goddess of music was Merit. Merit. Hathor, of course, or Heter, and Isis, and Bastet were all connected with music. But the actual goddess of music itself, who didn't have a temple built to her, was Merit. Merit. A beautiful name. And also the name of a principal character in the movie The Egyptian, which has one of the best soundtracks, speaking of music, from 1954, I think. Yes, a terrific movie. One of my favourites, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so that's this week's Piece of the Week. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit that ding-a-ling bell, and you'll get a notification of the next video when it arrives. And I think there is the... Do you smell that? There's a distinct whiff of competition in the air. I think it's competition time. It's coming soon. Better keep your eyes open. The clues are going to be in the past videos. And there'll be 1, 2, 3 prizes. Yeah, 3. I can count. Bye for now. Ow! No good for you. You get arthritis if you do that too much. You've got to keep these hands nimble for the future. I've only just begun. It feels like it. Have a look up there. There's some musicians. Oh, God. It's competition time.